seen a 7-footer that's able to handle the ball, shoot the ball, do all these things that you can dream about. Tell me about Karl Towns. Can he be an MVP caliber player in this league this year?
He can. I would think to be in an MVP conversation, your team needs to be in top 4 or 5 in the conference, and I would hope that happens for the Wolves. That might be the one thing that takes him out of that conversation. But for the opener, 36 points, 14 rebounds. He was 7 of 11 from 3. Karl's never made 7 threes. I think he's attempted 11 once, but he's never made 7 in his career, this being his 5th season. And that's the part of his game where that wasn't quite as clean or as utilized. Obviously, it was in high school when he was jumping over you to get to lob dunks. But when I had just asked him before the game in Brooklyn how, with this new offense and with him spacing more and having the free will to shoot more threes and this pace and everything, if it was second nature yet, or if he was still having to be conscious of where he needed to be and how much more time he was going to spend behind the three-point line. And he was like, I've been playing this way my whole life.
Right.
So and what he meant was, in high school, bringing up the ball, stuff like that.
I can attest.
Yeah. So I feel like this is where he was meant to be, the way he was meant to play, meaning on the floor. This is where he was meant to give his biggest contributions all along, and the Wolves are just trying to let that flourish a little more. Now, is he going to hit 7 threes every game? I sure hope so, but probably not. But what we saw in Brooklyn was he now is forcing the defense to stretch out. And then when he goes and posts up, it's a whole different look for the offense, for the Wolves offense.
Right.
Therefore, it's a whole different sort of scramble for the defense to be like, crap, okay, Karl's in the lane now, and he's just trying to bully ball somebody. And as soon as they do that, it's like you change the whole complexion, and whatever the defense is that's been out there has to adjust to a whole new, almost like a subbing in another guy, but it's Karl being able to do both. So if he can, he's a 40% three-point shooter. He was a 50-40, 90-50-40, 50-40. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Last year, he shot 40% from 3. What 7-footer shoots 40% from 3 in an NBA season? So,
and a high clip from the free throw line, too.
I'm telling you what, he was just under 90 and he made 7 of 8 in Brooklyn. So you tell me how you're going to game plan to stop this guy, because you take away one part of his game, he shows you another, and then he shows you another, and the Wolves are so conscious of making him the centerpiece. This is how we run our offense. This is the guy we go through. This is how he dictates everything, as it should be.
Marney, I really appreciate you giving me some time today. Make sure you go on Twitter, give her a follow at Marney Gellner. Have fun in Charlotte tonight. Let's get a W, and thanks again here for carving out some time for me.
All right, Steven, appreciate it. Shout out to Minnesota.
So in my opening monologue, I talked about if the Golden Gophers can actually win the Big Ten West. I waited till Saturday night. Obviously, the Gophers had a huge win, 52-10 over Maryland. You got to give credit where credit's due. I understand they haven't played a very good schedule, but PJ Fleck, and this was a perfect game where the Gophers, who are setting up for a huge game against Penn State, could have laid an egg here, and they didn't. So you have to give some credit to PJ Fleck for at least having them ready. So here's the big question. Can the Gophers actually win the Big Ten West? Now, there is a very big difference between can they and will they. Let me start by saying this. Congratulations to Coach Fleck. He's one of 22 coaches on the Paul Bear Bryant Coach of the Year award list. They're off to an 8-0 start. That's first time since 1960. They're also ranked 17th, and they're also 4-0 in the Big Ten for the first time since 1967. That changed. They're now 5-0. The Gophers have the 22nd best offense in the league right now. They're led by their sophomore, Tanner Morgans, who's had just an absolutely phenomenal season thus far. He's got 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Their defense has been solid, and they're only, allowing 21.5 points per game, which is 35th in the nation. So let's start by congratulating the Gophers so far in their season. As they said, it's 8-0. Now, let's break it down really quickly. Can the Minnesota Gophers actually win the Big Ten West? Yes, they can. So now the Gophers, who sit at 0 Big Ten losses. Wisconsin lost today. They lost to Ohio State. Iowa's a 2-loss, team right now. So you have the Gophers, who have a 2-game lead right now in the Big Ten West, and then you have Wisconsin and Iowa. So can the Gophers win the Big Ten West? Yes, they can. You look at it statistically, their remaining schedule is as followed: home against Penn State, at Iowa, at Northwestern, home against Wisconsin. Now, logically, this is what you got to do if you're the Gophers. You have to win 3 out of 4, okay? Because if you think of it like this, if you even split, you're probably not going to win. It depends on who you split with, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that the Gophers beat Penn State, they lose to Iowa State, they beat Northwestern, so they're a 1-loss Big Ten team, and let's assume that Wisconsin doesn't lose out for the rest of their season, and Wisconsin's a 2-loss team, Gophers are a 1. They play Wisconsin at home. If the Wisconsin Badgers beat the Gophers and they're both sitting at 2 losses, well, then Wisconsin would get the Big Ten West title because it's head-to-head matchups. So that's how it would work here. So that's what I'm saying. The Gophers really have to go 3-1 in this stretch. They have to either beat Penn State, Iowa, Northwestern, and then they can afford to lose to Wisconsin, because even if Wisconsin beats them, that would be their first loss. So we're talking, if we're really dreaming, I can't even believe we're in this situation, but if that happens, the Gophers would be 11-1. They beat Penn State, that would be 9. They would beat Iowa, 10, and then they'd beat Northwestern, which is 11. So they'd be 11-1. If this actually happened. Now, will they? Okay, so that's the biggest question here. Will the Gophers win the Big Ten West? And right now, and I hate to rain on anyone's parade, I don't see it. I just don't see it. You look at their schedule, and I know you can't control it. You can't control who you play. And I know the last couple of games, they've really smacked around teams. They've really smacked around Maryland. And Maryland was ranked at one point this year. They smacked around Rutgers, as they should. They smacked around Illinois, who ended up beating Wisconsin. But if you really want to, if you want me to look at it from a realistic standpoint, this game against Penn State is going to be incredibly difficult, because Penn State has one of the best defenses in the country. They have incredible speed on the defensive end. They've got incredible weapons offensively with KJ Hamler. They've got a decent enough quarterback that has been able to win them games. Sean Clifford has played really well. I mean, let's be honest. Clifford, who is kind of labeled as a game manager, has come in and really delivered. He doesn't, wow you with 400-yard games, but he makes throws to win. I mean, you look what he did at Michigan State today. You look what he did last week against Michigan, and so on and so forth. He's a capable quarterback. Penn State is a really, really good football team, and with Oklahoma, who just lost, they're going to move into the top 5 here. So Penn State is an incredibly coached team. They obviously have the speed, the skill. They've got 5-star guys everywhere. They're back to where they used to be. So this is going to be a really difficult game at home, and this is going to be the first real true test on how the Gophers can match up against an elite team like Penn State. I think that the Gophers' weapons offensively are going to give them issues. I think wide receiver-wise, Tyler Johnson, Bateman, they've got really good wideouts, and I think they have decent enough running backs as well with Rodney Smith, Shannon Brooks. They've got, Ibrahim. They've got a plethora of weapons offensively, and I think Tanner Morgan has taken that next step as well. Defensively is where you get concerned, because I don't know if they can hold up defensively against this Penn State offense. And also offensive line-wise, which is one of the highlights and the bright spots on this Gopher team, I don't know how they're going to be able to handle that front 4, because once again, they've got dudes, man. They have got NFL caliber defensive players, and they were on full display in this Michigan State game, and I was scouting it, and I was watching, and I'm like, man, they're going to give the Gophers a lot of trouble. So, and we'll realistically break this down. I think asking for a win at home against Penn State, I think that's a really tall order to ask from PJ Fleck and the fellas, so I'll give them a loss. I think they go to Iowa. I think they beat Iowa. Okay, I don't think Iowa is as good as they were labeled in the beginning of the season. I think they beat Iowa. I think they go beat Northwestern. Northwestern can't score. They've got a great defense. They play really hard. Fitzgerald's got them playing, hard all the time. But I think they beat Northwestern. So right now I have them at 9. I have 10-1 going into Wisconsin. And I just think coming off last year, the Gophers caught the Badgers in a bad season. And I think if it lines up the way it does and Wisconsin can get to the Big Ten title game at 2 losses and they have to beat Minnesota, I just think you look across the board, I just don't think the Gophers will win this game. You got to look at the factors here. Jonathan Taylor is a spectacular running back. They have Cone who does a nice job. He's another one of those Sean Clifford guys. He can make the occasional play, and their defense is really freaking good. And I think you add the emotional factor into this, especially what happened last year. I think it's just setting up, and it would be such it already is an amazing season. You finish 11 or whatever, 10-2, 11-2. That is something to be so proud of. If you're you couldn't even dream about double-digit wins a couple of years ago. Seriously. So I don't want fans to get all distraught. But if there was one year to win the Big Ten and to get to the Big Ten title game, this is the year, and I hope I'm wrong. Let me just look at Iowa's schedule really quickly. They play Wisconsin, so that's a huge game for the Gophers' sake. Because I think you should be cheering for Iowa in this situation. Because Iowa, you would assume you're more likely to beat Iowa than you're going to like to beat, Wisconsin. So Iowa plays at Wisconsin, they're home against Minnesota, they're home against Illinois, and then they're at Nebraska. Then you look at Wisconsin, who's a 2-loss team right now. They're home against Iowa, they're at Nebraska, they're home against Purdue, they're at Minnesota. So Wisconsin's only troubling game is home against Iowa, and they should pretty much steamroll Nebraska and Purdue. So if there's one chance for the Gophers to maybe get left off the hook, it would be next week when Wisconsin and Iowa play. And I think you should be cheering for Iowa if you're a Gopher fan. Because I think the likelihood of you beating Wisconsin in the last game to get to the Big Ten championship, I just don't think the odds are in the Gophers' favor. Once again, can the Gophers win the Big Ten West? Yes, they can. They can. Will they? I do not think so. I do not think so. It's been an incredible season. And for the first 8 games, you can say what you want about the schedule. You can say what you want about the results. But the last 4 games, and I said it a few weeks ago, championships aren't won in October. They're winning November and December. And the Gophers are going to get their chance here the last 4 games. Penn State, at Iowa, at Northwestern, home against Wisconsin. What's it going to be? Are they going to get to the Big Ten championship? Or is it just going to be another one of those great seasons that end in disappointment? All right, take 17 here on the Strom Sports Show. We finally got Hicks Picks back. I don't know what's been going on with the microphone. It's really annoying me, but it is what it is. Try to fight through it here. As we approach Week 7 of the NFL, Vikings have already taken care of business. Mikey, I was there about a week ago today, and we're recording on a Friday, which is just crazy to me. How's everything? Is everyone holding down the fort at State?
Yeah, we're holding down the fort. We miss the boys, and hope you had a great weekend and show you how it's done in the Valley.
Hey, and it was a great weekend, and we went up there for the Penn State-Michigan game. It was just a phenomenal atmosphere. Penn State ended up winning. They didn't cover for me, shocker, but they really did put on a great show. The atmosphere there is incredible. I definitely suggest it. Let's go into the picks really quickly here. I went 2-1. Decent week for me. The average. Hick, who just came off a really good 3-0 week, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was the pregame jitters, having it live. Hick's picks with me on Friday, but Hick went 0-3. I'll read you the selections really quickly here. Hick had the Lions, and Hick had the Giants, and Hick had the Jets, and I had Miami plus 16. That was easy. I had the Vikes minus 2.5. That was easy. And then I had the Jets, foolishly. Me and Hick picking the Jets plus 10. That was a terrible, terrible take by us. But it's a new week. Hick moves to 9-12. I moved to 11-10. Just when Hick started to creep up, he falls back down in that trap of the loser better. Let's start here. I will begin. I'm going to take the Saints here. Saints minus 10.5 over Arizona. Look, I'm a huge Kyler Murray guy. I bet on the Cardinals multiple times this season, but I'm just looking the way that the Saints are playing, and the way they play at home is just different. And I think that Teddy Bridgewater has the formula to win this game. I don't think this really is close. Give me the Saints minus 10.5. Easy one to start you off here on a beautiful Sunday morning.
Yeah, so for my